Good evening and welcome to another special edition of the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station. I am your host, Roman. We have a terrific show planned for you today. Today, my guest is a community leader and former automatic candidate. Today on the Drive at 5, he will make a formal announcement along with we're going to discuss Chicago violence and other items that is concerning the city of Chicago. They call him the little brother of Chicago. Please welcome back to the Drive, Jedidiah Brown. Welcome back to the Drive.
Roman, I'm so glad to be on the Drive.
Yeah, I'm glad you're in person this time.
Definitely. Exactly. Last time it was on the phone.
Right.
In the studio.
Right. Now, let's discuss the last time you were on the phone. What happened since last time that you were on the Drive? This is the first time you have addressed this in a public setting.
What are we addressing?
And now you are ready to address it.
What are we addressing?
You were on Lakeshore Drive.
Lakeshore Drive.
And you were at an emotional state. You broadcast on Facebook Live. A lot of people want to know what happened and what led you to do that to that dangerous path. Describe the scene to us. And what
Drive.
And what happened.
I'll say this because it is something that I expect to come up. And obviously it was quite the spectacle. I had a breakdown and I chose to have it, I had a breakdown and it was on Facebook Live. And the day and the time we live in, things like that, obviously it went viral. It's something that a lot of Chicagoans had to experience with me, which I'm eternally grateful for. A lot of the times when you go into scenes where there are violence, be it as an advocate, a first responder, a crisis responder, a lot of the times you're on autopilot and you don't really know how these things are affecting you. Consistently seeing even things as graphic as dead children taken away from us by senseless gun violence, or dealing with people's issues consistently day in and day out of trying to fight the power of corrupt government to provide resources for the neighborhood. These things, when you're on autopilot, you don't really realize the effect that it can have on you. And the times that it can bring you down, or you could be depressed from it. And these are things that I wasn't aware of, because I think in that time I was in a place where I just wanted to serve, and self-care wasn't a big focus. But I lost a young man that meant the world to me, Roman, and it was something that was completely unexpected, on top of a lot of pressures of helping or trying to serve and help our people. A lot of the times with the disadvantages of resources or support, and I had a breakdown. Once some information was shared with me about the loss of the young man, it kind of just sent me over the edge. And I do hate that it was Facebook Live, but I'm very, very appreciative of the people in Chicago who I would ultimately say loved me back to myself and loved me back to life. And I'm also happy to say that I've gone and gotten away and did full evaluations of no longer having any type of suicidal thoughts, or no longer at a breakdown state, or always now making sure that I take care of self now and acknowledge the grieving, acknowledge the pains, and acknowledge the disappointments, and heal and move for them. But having gone away, gotten a clean bill of mental health, I'm very much so clear that it was a breakdown, that there is no lasting illness, and that I am at the place where my psychiatrists and psychologists and counselors are all behind even my move to run for public office. And in that, I say that anything like that is not about what takes you down, it's about how you get back up. And out of that, I believe in situations like that, there is a lot of PTSD that first responders, our firemen, our paramedics, our firefighters, that they experience and no one talks about. No one sees. There is a lot of mental illness issues that are going on in our community that no one sees. Well, I think that situation that I went through created more compassion in me in places that I would have probably never really paid attention to. And now we get to talk about solutions for individuals who suffer from those things as well, after in a more compassionate state, after having experienced a breakdown myself.
Let's talk about the naysayers.
The naysayers. You're always going to have them.
The naysayers. Some people believe it was a publicity stunt. Can you clear up via our airwaves that any people have any doubt of that situation that occurred? Was it a publicity stunt to gravitate some publicity, some national publicity, to put you in the forefront or on the news or something like that?
Roman, I think it's very unfortunate that anybody would even have been a possibility. No person in their right mind would think that a suicide attempt would get them put them in a favorable place. It actually put me in a place where I've had to work harder to regain the confidence of the community.
Not to contradict, but also people were saying they wouldn't put it on Facebook Live. If you're grieving, if you're hurting, why put it publicly?
That is a misconception. That is an uneducated answer. There are many forms by which people have expressed they don't have a desire to live any longer. There are people who have taken their life on Facebook Live. There are people who have gone down and created heinous crimes on Facebook Live. There are people who have jumped off of buildings. It is not dictate or determine how a person is going to express what they're going through or what they feel. And to say that the cookie cutter answer is, well, it was put on Facebook Live because it was a public spectacle, is obviously people who didn't watch the video or pay attention. I was a man at that time that was literally broken, and it was broken because not only I lost a young man that meant the world to me, but because the fight was literally taking its toll on me. And my humanity, I'm a human. It just became too much in that moment. And so I don't really listen to the naysayers and and people who say it's a public spectacle, because it was me and it was God and it was the thousands of Chicagoans who saw at that moment. I was in real pain, and that's how I got out of it. And that's why I say now I'm in the best place I've ever been in my entire life. Moving forward.
Some people said they have reached out to you.
Okay.
They have tried to talk to you. Even while you was at this emotional state, they said, sit down, relax a little bit. You're going at this too strong. You did not listen. Why you didn't listen?
With that, I don't think that I did. I don't think that I went too strong. I think that I did not pause in times that I needed to pause. But again,
but why you ignored when people say it was time to pause? Why you didn't do an assessment?
I'm gonna tell you this. I'm excited. I've moved forward. I've gone through the proper channels of taking a step back and getting my healing, and I'm moving forward with that. I'm moving forward, and I'm back to fighting for our city. I'm back to fighting for our people, and I'm doing it in a more balanced, strategic, and sound manner, better than I've ever done. A gift came from me out of that. So people who say they reached out to me or they've given me advice, they obviously were not people who were in the fight with me. You don't really take the advice of individuals who don't show up and walk the walk with you. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has something to say. If I wasn't listening to them, then maybe they were on the outside looking in and they didn't try to come and actually get involved. And so you have to have a strategic amount of voices who you listen to. And I can't say I've done everything right, but I say I am so glad that I fought with every fiber of my being for my community. And I believe that that is what by which in return caused the community to be a part of my healing process. And I'm fine, and I go to sleep very well with that at night.
The Chicago Police Department at that point in time aggressively forced you out of the car by ramming it. There's a lot of questions with that. A lot of people, including myself, are saying they did not follow protocol for any law enforcement to do that to a person in that emotional state. Your response to how they handled that?
So I think that, first of all, I would say that the police department in that particular instance, I will say that they handled they handled me with a level of care I do believe would not be typical for someone that may not have had as much visibility as me. But it is also about which I have made my commitment for the full demilitarizing of the Chicago Police Department. Because when you have a person in a state of emotional distress or suffering from any kind of, which I again, I'm not mentally ill, but anybody that's suffering from a mental illness, you need more service, more services. You don't need a militarized police response because it heightens the moment. It creates more chaos. It creates more confusion and fear, and so I don't like the I don't like certain aspects of how the Chicago Police Department handled that day, but in totality, I think I'm not sure that would be the typical encounter, but it is because of that that we should demilitarize our police department. That and many other instances that I've seen.
It's out there viral. If you look at it very closely towards the end, a lot of people be like, whoa, what happened?
There is not. You know what I appreciate about people who are honest? That was a moment in my life that almost every human being, if they be honest, if they really been fighting for anything and really been working hard, everybody at some point, maybe not to that magnitude, has had a thought or feeling or desire to give up. And so we be honest, I am more equipped. It didn't take anything away from me. I am more equipped to talk about the things that people don't want to talk about and to speak to a demographic of people who feel like, or they may be invisible or who historically are not spoken to. And that is why this candidacy is so important to me, because I need for people to understand that it is time for the real language of what's really going on in real everyday people's lives to be talked about, not for talking points or political points, but for us to really address it with real solutions. And so, yes, it's viral. People saw it, but majority of the people who we've interacted said, I felt like giving up before. And I thank you because people have drawn strength from the recovery and where I stand today. And so we're moving forward.
Let's talk about politics, shall we? First, you supported the mayor.
First, I didn't support the mayor. Then I supported the mayor.
then you supported the mayor.
Very touchy situation.
Now you no longer support him at all.
Absolutely.
What led to not supporting and supporting the mayor? Why?
So when I started in activism, obviously it was because of the acts of violence that was taking place in Shore.
Who reached out to whom?
Who reached out to who, as in who initiated our connection?
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. So initially, my fight was always against the powers that be because of the conditions that were plaguing my neighborhood. It is also what contributed to me in my run for alderman, because I felt that my alderman at the time was unresponsive to the needs of the neighborhood, and that the mayor of the city, who was Rahm Emanuel, had no interest in making things better for people. And so I was a loud voice. This is how I became very prevalent. Before there was a Laquan McDonald shooting, before there were shootings that were highlighted across the country, I was galvanizing crowds of 300 to 400 people, not in reaction, but being proactive and raising the issues in our community. One of the only young activists doing it, young advocates doing it. And so I was reached out to from a man who presented himself to become a mentor to me, who was also the father of Chance the Rapper, Ken Bennett. It was at the time had become staff of community engagement for Rahm Emanuel. And then there was another factor that I think people don't realize. So we were upset with Rahm Emanuel because of what he did, but we were very proud of Barack Obama. So in hindsight, so in my subconscious, I was thinking that this man just doesn't understand our plight, and he needs to have a chance with people at the table who are going to tell him the truth about what we need, because how would Obama endorse a man who would not be good for us? Because we all love President Barack Obama. And so when it came for his re-election, I had my first time engaging with Rahm. He had made these promises to serve and do our community better and do right. I had no real tangible rapport with him just off of the things of the media. I didn't know who he was. And so I made a decision based on all of the facts, based on the candidates that were before me. He was the only one who seemed to have the connections and the qualifications and the money and the backing to get what Chicago needs. And I made a very uncomfortable choice to trust and support Rahm Emanuel at that time, which I do not apologize about. Now, during the course of now working with him and sitting in his office and meeting with him and sitting in his meetings and seeing these things he's doing, I'm getting to now see the man, not the headline of the man. I'm seeing the man, and I begin to quickly realize Rahm Emanuel is not a good leader for the city of Chicago. So it was then at the releasing of the Laquan McDonald video, which I had no knowledge of at the time, when we said that maybe he should be given a second chance. And when the Laquan McDonald video came out and the way that he responded, because if people pay attention, I didn't automatically come out against him. I wanted to see if he would rise to the occasion of being the mayor that Chicago needed in a crisis that could have literally created riots, destroyed businesses, caused people to lose their lives. And I wanted to see if Rahm Emanuel would do right. And when I realized that not only did he not have the will or the desire to do right by the people of Chicago, but then there was another part to this. He political escape versus to bring resolve. And so when I realized that this man has no interest in doing right, that is when I then decided to go back to saying, now informed, now with having had a relationship, a working relationship, now I can confidently say that Rahm Emanuel is a disaster for the city of Chicago. And that's how that goes.
You mentioned several things. You said you were uncomfortable making that decision. But why you made that decision, if you felt uncomfortable, people in a normal situation say, if I'm comfortable, I'm not going to go in that situation. You went into that situation anyway, knowing the ifs, ands, and buts, and the pros and cons. You just said, okay, I'll give this man another chance, knowing he didn't.
And well, you know, so did majority of the black electorate voters. He had an overwhelming amount of black support giving him a second chance because we had limited information. We did not have candidates who really drove home a plan for our neighborhoods, nor did they make it clear why Rahm Emanuel was bad for us. So you're talking about a man who I've never met before. You're talking about a man who's sitting in office as the leader of the third largest city in America. And so, yes, it's discomfort, but it's discomfort because of a lack of information. A lack of information anymore. And that is why my decision is clear, it is conscious, and I don't care how much money, I don't care what headline, I don't care what promises made. There is no way I could ever support Rahm Emanuel for any elected office affecting anybody's life ever again. And then there's another part that we have to add on to this. There was a huge intergenerational disconnect. New young advocates like myself, full of fire, full of zeal, and we just want our community better. And so with that, you come knowing that there's an intergenerational disconnect. We were not equipped of the political ploys and the political plays. And so I can say that I learned the lesson, and I'm making sure that I format my life in such a way that the generation behind me don't repeat the same mistakes. And I'm even doing that now while we're dealing with who's going to become the governor of the state of Illinois, because some of the same things are happening. And I am now a voice of consciousness against business as usual.
You mentioned the governor.
Yes, sir.
So you're smiling already. What is your feelings towards the governor runner? What is your feelings? You have to deal. Let's go ahead and make the formal announcement. You are running for mayor. Correct?
I wish I could make it formal, but I say that we are in full exploratory committee mode. And that means that we are determining if there is a path for me to run a viable candidacy. I don't want to be a distraction. I don't want to take away. I want to run to win. If I'm going to run, I want to have a clear path to win. It means the resource to do it, the platform to do it, and the understanding of in Chicago to do it, the backings. And so that's what exploratory creating a platform, looking at what I would like to see done, seeing how people feel about me. And so once you get through those processes, can I raise the money? Because I guarantee you, running for mayor of the city of Chicago will be no small feat. So we're in
He has
exploratory committee
$30
mode.
million.
He's going after $30 million. He doesn't have $30 million, but
He's going after.
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he'll reach it.
What you're hoping for to exceed it?
I don't think that I don't care if Rahm Emanuel had $100 million. I don't think that the people of Chicago are going to forget what has happened under the leadership of this man over the last. I think people are clear that this man does not have the heartbeat of the city. He is not going to move us forward. And so it doesn't matter how much money Rahm Emanuel has. It doesn't matter what sweater he wears and what commercial he wears it on. We are clear. It is time for Rahm Emanuel to go.
Let's discuss what happened over the weekend. There's over 2,000 shootings across the city of Chicago. This weekend alone, 34 people shot and 7 killed. Again, no one is saying there is a gang war going on. Given what happened over the weekend, will you say, is there a gang war, or is there purging going on in Chicago streets? Some of the murders that's transpiring on Chicago streets, of it. Is it a gang war, or are they purging? Someone was on the south side playing basketball, didn't do anything to nobody, shot in the head. Which one would you want to die? I mean, it's to a place where people are so bold, they're shooting people outside of a church, going to a sanctuary. It used to be respect. So what is happening out here?
There's no silver bullet to this. And it's something that obviously I'm passionate about. Unfortunately, even out of the numbers of this weekend, 2 of those individuals I'm connected to that have passed on from senseless gun violence. There is no, I'm not going to say that, oh, there's a gang war. I will say that there are factions of individuals and cliques or that are trying to emulate gangs that are shooting, but that wouldn't be the full narrative. That would be the narrative. Right now, we have an uninspired generation that is filled, that think that their only line of defense is to obtain guns illegally and to shoot, because there is a deterioration of the fabric of family in society, primarily where the gun violence is taking place on the south and the west side of Chicago. And I don't say this by hearsay, but are contributors in authority that's also adding and fueling the gun violence that's taking place in the city of Chicago. It's very hard to say. It is not palatable to receive. But let me tell you this: the reason that gun violence is going unchecked in black and brown neighborhoods is because it is by design. They are gentrifying us out of the neighborhood, and they want us to take on the children are bad, destructive, and just want to senselessly shoot each other so that we would add on or push their agenda of gentrifying us out. And so when you look at a Chicago water department official selling guns while he's on city time, that ought to raise an eyebrow for the city across the board, that there are things that are going on in the culture of the city of Chicago that need to be addressed. And so pinpointing it is what I'm working on. But I know for a fact that young people are being given guns. The work that I do, I had a young man had a gun with a drum on it, and I said, where did you get that from? He said that it was given to him for free, told me use this to protect your turf. I know the young man wasn't lying to me. I know his age, I know his family, I know his background. Guns are being released into our neighborhood, and it's intentional. Absolutely. You're talking about a kid who got a gun who can't buy a gyro sandwich at the local greasy spoon. Something you got to raise an eyebrow with that.
Mayor Will you get to the bottom of it?
As mayor of Chicago, I'm going to solve it because I believe that I'm going to be able to solve it because what people don't recognize is Black death is profitable to the current system, the current administration. Black death is profitable, and so I'm gonna be the candidate that empowers. So what? I'm going to be the candidate and the mayor that empowers the residents. The way that you solve gun violence is that you have to put something in front of it that has more value. And so we're saying we need to just put more police in the neighborhood. Well, no, the police officers have a strained relationship with the citizens. It is time to empower the citizens of Chicago to take public safety by the horns and to and resourced as such that the community understands that they have a part to play in solving the gun violence. And those specifics are going to be rolled out further along as we get to the campaign.
WGN did an investigation regarding unsolved murders in Chicago. 71% of killers got away with murder, leaving 29% solved murders in Chicago. Why no one is discussing this issue?
A less than 30% clearance rate. That ought to outrage anybody.
Well, this has been out since July. So why no this?
I mean, people are discussing it, but again, there is a lack. The will is lacking as it relates to addressing it. I think that we need to be looking at best investigative practices that are going on around the country, and we need to retrain our detectives. And if our detectives are complicit and they are disconnected and they're not able to solve the crimes, what job do you go to where an individual is unproductive but they get to keep their job? And so our detectives, we need to be looking at our Bureau of Detectives in the city of Chicago, and we need to be finding out why aren't they solving these murders? Why aren't they making inroads to get in relationships with residents so that the community feels safe enough to turn in a shooter? And so I've told, this is one thing that I can say, and it's a phrase that I'm going to be very clear about. As the mayor, I'm going to be the law and community candidate. We have people who have ran off of fear. People who say, hey, we need to go and make a war on drugs, or we need to we need to get back order and control. Well, I want to be the law and community candidate. And what that means is in Chicago, we're going to choose life. And it's a clear message to both sides. If you are a police officer in the city of Chicago and I'm the mayor, then if you are a good cop, the resources and the weight of City Hall backing you. But if you are a bad cop, we're going to isolate you and you will be on an island by yourself. Chicago will not use taxpayers to pay your lawsuits because you don't want to do your job correctly. But on the other hand, if you are part of the community and you are stuck in a cycle where your quality of life leads you to violence, then we're also going to make sure you have the wealth, the resources, and the weight of City Hall. But if you are somebody in this city, in Chicago, that will take a life senselessly, you're going to be on an island, and we're going to use the full weight, resource, and wealth of City Hall to come after. You're going to do that is by empowering the residents, and that is something that this administration refuses to do. They won't do it.
A lot of people would probably counter that argument. Been there, done that. Black Panther Party, community, strong. H. Rob Brown once said in his book, and we addressed this before, only us can protect us. And that stands true today. However, every time we try to protect us, it gets disseminated some shape or form. Either us is selling out or lack of funding. There's no money. This is how Rahm Emanuel did it, if you want to know. Number one.
Tell me out, Roman.
No, I'm not helping you out.
Go ahead.
But there's a question along with this. He cut the CAPS program to the point that it's almost fading out. There was some camaraderie among community. However, it's been fading, cuts and cuts and cuts and cuts. So let's say you don't have access to the information that when it comes to the budget.
Absolutely.
You don't have access to this, but you're saying you're going to be law and community.
Absolutely.
How are you going to be law and community and all of a sudden you're working with a shoestring budget? How are you going to do that? How are you going to empower the community and say, listen to me, because I will set you free type of tactic? And people are like, I can do this, but we need money out of this.
Absolutely. So I'll say this. It wasn't caps. That wasn't the start of it. The caps is education. I mean, the beginning of it is education. If you want to destabilize a community, and if you want to create unstable and unsafe conditions, the first place that you attack is education, because an uninformed, uneducated, uninspired people are usually left to their own devices. They don't have direction. And so anybody who believes that Chicago is broke doesn't understand Chicago politics or Chicago governance. For example, $561 million, according to the county assessor's office, from TIF funding alone. With the mayor having autonomous control over TIF funds with no oversight, have to ask no one for permission, $561 million could have funded our education system, if not in full, halfway. So we say, oh, we're broke. There's going to be a $113 million shortfall in the budget on this end, but then turn around and say, well, but we know that the mayor has over $500 in TIF funds that he has to answer to no one about. So what he does is take out a loan of excess of $500 million to fund Chicago public schools a quarter of the way, but it's going to be at the scale of the interest rate causing the taxpayers to come behind to pay $851 million in interest to his banking buddies. If our education system fails, him and his friends profit. Our neighborhoods are destabilized and in chaos, and that leads to violence. So violence is not the conversation. It's education. A fully funded quality education will stop the trend of violence in Chicago. Hoods that are not blighted and have economic development where individuals are able to work, go have jobs, stops violence in the city of Chicago. Places there's no reason why 79th Street should not be a destination. If you think that Chicago is broke, look at O'Hare Airport. That brings in billions of dollars of revenue by itself. Look at the tax square footage of the Sears Tower. I want to get their tax bill. Their tax bill alone probably can stimulate economic development in my neighborhood for generations to come. You have had administrations and you have had a party, the Democratic Party, who has learned in a sense of corruption and in a sense of dysfunction. They have learned how to secure their pensions off of the pain of an uninformed, uninspired, ignorant constituency, because it's what they intentionally create. But if you educate our people, there's no way we would stay in this rut.
Jobs.
I get fired up when I think about my city. I'm sorry, guys.
Jobs are the real answers as a resource tool in the Black community. However, do you agree? Some people in the Black community are used to having nothing or any resources, made a conscious decision. Drugs is the answer. It's the only way in order for me to make money. So no matter if you bring some jobs in the community, they're so used to not having anything, they're used to selling drugs.
I don't want to bring jobs to the community. I want to bring careers. I want to bring.
But how are you going to bring careers?
And that's something that we are forming in our platform. But I want to bring careers and I want to bring business owners. Something that I'm very committed to even addressing in our public education system. And I'm bouncing because it's all connected. We need to stop teaching our children to remember and start teaching our children to critically think. And we should be making not employees, but business owners. And so how are we going to bring careers and how are we going to bring careers and business ownership? There are going to be some sources that are going to be provided for residents to inspire economic development in blighted neighborhoods. And again, that is something that TIF funds were created for alone. There should be grants given to people who want to start small businesses in neighborhoods like South Shore and Inglewood and places that are plagued with violence. There should be, but there isn't. They do a few small grants of $250,000 to get to a few people to say, hey, we've done something good in the neighborhood. How does a city that's broke miraculously find $100 million and then turn around and say, we're going to use it for social enterprises? You didn't find $100 million. You just finally decide to give it up. Leadership that's going to tell the truth. Chicago isn't broke. We have the resources. They just don't have the will. And we need a candidate who does. And I'm one of those individuals.
Well, let's talk about economics since you're heading that way. The mayor has taxed 7 cents per plastic bag, water bottle tax. People are going tax crazy and they're going to the suburbs. The suburbs are now building. Give you an example. There's a border in the Austin community. Community is fueling millions of dollars in Anno Park. And on the south side of Chicago, and are fueling since the plastic bag tax has been going to Gary, Indiana, and fueling money. Since the soda tax, it has been a big boom in DuPage County and all the surrounding of Cook County areas, including Gary, Indiana. People are saving their money and making that drive to neighboring counties or Gary, Indiana,
absolutely,
to shop. As mayor, would you repeal those taxes? What would you do? And they saying this money is paying for employment, pension. They're saying it's regentrification. It's for something. What are your thoughts?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that, man, I just carpooled to Indiana to go groceries. And I think I'm going to keep on doing it because the Cook County sugar tax, I don't have it. Not right now. So it's disheartening to see people have to travel outside of their local community to get the necessary resources that they need, but it is actually happening in droves. People are across the state line, they're getting out of Cook County and they're leaving Chicago. There was a study that basically said that the people are not buying the bags. People are literally walking out of grocery stores with their items in their hands. They're refusing the bag tax. They're refusing the the sugar tax. And I'm saying good job to the people of the city of Chicago. And so one of the ways by which I've come to understand, and again, these are some things that are going to be clearly defined as we get closer to campaign, but I can give you this. One of the things that is historically wrong right now with Chicago is that we have too many politicians. Too many politicians, and it is too dysfunctional. It is too corrupt. People are building dynasties off of the pain of the masses. And so one of the things that I commit to doing as mayor of the city of Chicago is reducing the number of city councilmen in City Hall. We have had a 3-year population decrease. There's nobody that have yet mentioned, well, then that means we need less representatives. And when you start getting them to understand that what you all are doing to affect us also affects your job, they'll straighten up quick. And so while we're sitting up here getting ready to pay more pensions when we already have a pension crisis, I say, and we're still doing the math, but the number of city councilmen by half is what I'm really focused at. And basically, you reduce the number of staff members, you expand city management services, and now you can repeal either the bag or the bag tax. Because now the revenue that we would have been paying $100,000 a year to 50 different individuals who have solved no crisis for our city, understand that, but we'll have a more responsive government, because not only now will they don't have to deal with 50,000 eyes on them. Now they got to deal with 100,000 eyes on them. And how do you then dismantle a system of dynasty creation? You take away mayoral authority to appoint an alderman in the case of a vacancy. Until there's a special election, I believe that the aldermen who are seated should vote for who will fill the vacancy. And so now the mayor has to now deal with a stronger city council who are then in return more responsive to the people. The people are more empowered because I'm going to make it as such that the dealings of finances and legislation in City Hall are more accessible. You don't have to worry about a FOIA request with my administration because the information of what's going on in the City Hall will be right at the and the people will be informed of what's going on. That will call for a more transparent, fair, responsive, and responsible governance in the city of Chicago. And that's what I'm committed to.
What about the water bottle tax? The water bottle tax, you have lead in school waters, park districts. African American park districts is filled with lead water, and children are drinking from it. Also, you have rodents. $34 million was allocated to the park district. Only one, West Side, Columbus Park, and they still haven't seen any type of resources, type of repairs or anything like that. As mayor, the park district is in disarray. They have the water bottle tax. It's supposed to help the environment. It just seems like you have the coyote problems that's supposed to get rid of the rodents, but you have more raccoon populations than ever before, and you still have 2,000, which is now close to 3,000 coyotes running around the city of Chicago now. And what they supposed to do?
There's a plethora of issues that need to be addressed. And again, as we get closer to the campaign, on giving a plan to address all of these issues. But my main focus, as far as taxation is concerned, is to remove the bag tax and to, as far as fines and fees, remove the light and speed cameras.
So what about the water bottle?
And so we've not figured out we're still formulating our plan. It's very early on. We're formulating our plan with the information made available to us, but I'm going to focus in those areas just for now to bring relief to people immediately, as well as a commitment that if an individual has their car seized and an arrest because they had a charge, if a court of law that those individuals are not guilty, or if they dismiss the case, I believe that it becomes the responsibility of the city to give them back their property without fining them, without giving them service charges. I believe that the city should be responsible for restitution. Immediate relief will give us the time to eventually be able to solve all of these crises, even a water tax, or using the revenue to do exactly what they were supposed to do in the first place.
You basically said that you want to heal Chicago. You talk about the taxes. You talk about state and local government. One component, you have the Black Caucus. Whenever there's anything that goes or pass, it has to go through the Black Caucus. I'm on board to appeal or to do what you're saying.
I'm not going to have to get them on board alone. The people are tired, Roman. The people are fed up and they are tired. But a lot of people say that,
let me stop you there. A lot of people say the people are tired.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people,
they are.
But they're still voting the same people in.
Because they've not seen a clear path out. I believe that my candidacy would be that. What has not happened?
How can you convince Ms. Johnson, mm-hmm. who's 73 years old? Only information she gets is on Channel 7. Only information she's get is on Channel 5. She doesn't have access to the internet. Mm-hmm. So Ms. Johnson is basically receiving ham from the alderman. Mm-hmm. The mayor is coming to shake her hand. Oh, that's a nice mayor. He does this and that and the other. I'm going to give him my vote.
That is why you have an exploratory committee. You have to develop and see if you can develop a path to victory. All of those things are covered in the exploratory committee, which is where I am. So Ms. Johnson is going to be reached, and Ms. Johnson will be able to make a fully informed decision, Roman, and be it that we get out of exploratory committee mode and it becomes a official candidacy. Is gonna, one thing that I'm very much so happy about is that when people are touched, when people are inspired, they'll do the campaigning with you. And I saw that with Barack Obama. I didn't need money. I understood his message. I believe that he was the right formula for the day at that time. And I did everything that I could to make sure that Barack Obama became the 44th president of the United States of America. And everybody had a stake in that because we all believe. And that's the kind of campaign that I'm hoping that I'll be able to run.
And you'll come back to address these issues that I'm
absolutely
okay.
Closer to the campaign's launch.
Okay. Let's talk about Trump for a minute.
And not get away.
His recent debacle last Tuesday was a clear path to say that's where his heart.
Absolutely. You're not shocked, are you?
I'm not going to say yes or I'm not going to say no. What is your opinion? You stopped at the UIC, and there are talks about having the alt-right to have a march in Chicago.
In October.
In October. Your thoughts on that and the thoughts of Trump, and will you be among the masses to say it's not going to happen? Explain what happened last year and to now.
I am not shocked by Donald Trump's comments. That's why I stood against his presidency from the beginning. The same man that is now the president, the 45th president of the United States, is who we saw coming during that entire campaign. We knew who his base was. We knew what their rhetoric was. No one should be shocked. And for him to now try to switch the focus or the blame and even create what technically is the alt left? What is that? Who are they? And so for him to give cover lets me further know that Donald Trump has an agenda to, in his slogan, "Make America Great Again," give refuge to white supremacy, racism, bigotry, and hatred. And so while there are speculations or rumors of what they're calling white nationalists to come to the city of Chicago, first of all, I don't think that they are aware of the number of liberals on the white side. I mean, on the north side, white liberals on the north side, or blacks on the south and the west side that just won't have it. And there ain't not too many other sides after that.
Well, that's the same thing, but look at what happened.
A whole different monster and agenda. I don't think they want to come to Chicago, and I would really discourage them for doing so. But my focus right now isn't to chase around angry, bigoted, hateful people, because that's not going to solve anything. You don't beat hate with hate. I am focused on building consensus and unity amongst black people in the city of Chicago while I wait for the reports of my exploratory committee, because I believe that if we focus on strengthening our own community, getting our own people employed, getting our own people to at least look at each other without disdain and have conversations and build community and block clubs, if we focus on that, then when a white supremacist domestic terrorist group that they're calling white nationals show up to the city, they're going to be met with a strong, united opposition of communities who care for itself. And that's going to be the most beautiful day in the city of Chicago. We had an experience with Mount Greenwood when we heard the rhetoric that was hate-filled. What I've learned in that is that I need to focus on my own community and build it up. That's going to be the solution.
Trump cut the civil rights division. Trump basically did photo op opportunities for
HBCUs.
with the historical black colleges
Yes,
and
he did.
universities. We had someone here last week, that was in support of Donald Trump because of the unions. And African Americans are not, some of the African Americans that supported him are not apologetic.
Absolutely.
Why you think they're not apologetic? Because there's one woman who's based here in Chicago,
Brunell Donald,
on CNN, and basically she's like rampaging and rapping and saying that the alt left, the liberals, the media such as IntellectualRadio.com and iHeartMedia and NBC, Channel 5, the list goes on, are just exploring hate.
I know Brunell Donald, who is the individual that's being spoken of, very well. And I've reached out.
Is she getting paid by the Trump administration?
I believe Brunell Donald is telling us what her authentic viewpoints are. As she's expressed to me in times past, that she as an individual had become fed up with the Democratic Party taking us for granted, and she felt that her views are more conservative and more aligned with the Republican Party. Now, this was way well before she came out in support of Donald Trump. This is actually during the time when she was running for lieutenant governor for the state of Illinois, when I heard her say those words. And so what I believe is that our people have taken very extreme, hardline stances on one side of the aisle because we have not been conditioned to understand diversity. And so what I mean by that is, I don't necessarily believe that Brunell Donald believes everything she's saying. I believe that she believes that the only way that she can get or move the narrative further along is that she has to go along with the components that she don't agree with for the sake of what she do. And many Democrats do that on a consistent basis every single day.
But don't you think that's a sellout point?
That is a compromising point. I don't think
that a compromising
sellout point? You know, we are so quick to call people sellouts and coons and
But that's not me saying
not
that.
Not saying you are. I'm saying we as a people. We are so quick to do that because the person don't share our viewpoint or our understanding.
Well, let me stop you.
And I'm not making excuses because I looked at CNN and I threw a sock at the TV like, what in the world is she talking about? But it is so easy to make a assumption off of someone on a television screen you have no interaction with. I know Brunell Donald personally. I know the kind of woman she is.
But why she would go on national television and broadcast views that you said that she doesn't necessarily
agree with anything she said on that. And I believe that she feels that in order for the agenda that she has to move forward, she has to go along with the parts that she don't agree with for the sake of the ones that she do. That's politics 101. And that is not a system by which I ascribe. And so even now, I'm a Democrat. I was born a Democrat. But why am I a Democrat? Do I feel the Democrats have taken advantage of my vote and confidence? Absolutely. And so I'm now with the persuasion, well, I'll talk to both sides, Republican and Democrat. My vote is committed to no one. I tell them, anybody say, hey, I am historically Democrat, but I'm part of the purple party. I'm independent right now. Put the red and the blue together. Let's have a holistic conversation, because there are points that are valid on the right side of the aisle. There are points that are valid on the left side of the aisle, but in reverse, because I have the wrong hands. And if we learn to stop looking at what divides us and what we all want in conjunction or in agreement, we'll get a lot more done. And that's where I'm pointing the finger to.
Would you run as a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or a Green Party candidate?
Well, running for a city election gives you the benefit of being nonpartisan. I'm willing to work across the aisle. I'm running as a resident.
So you're going to, no party affiliation?
I'm running as a resident.
You're running as a resident.
I promise you that the Democratic Party will not be happy with me in my campaign, and I promise you that the Republican Party will not be happy with me in my campaign, because I'm going to tell the truth.
I still can't believe that you have an individual that goes on national television and basically say you're race baiting.
Uh-huh.
Do you think that she believes that the media and some commentators are race baiting?
That again, you say things that you may not necessarily fully believe.
But it's out there now.
It's out there, absolutely. And so it's left into the masses to cipher through it and make their determinations of how they will respond to it. But for me, knowing Brunell, it wasn't a nice thing, a palatable thing. I don't think it was a true thing, but I think that she did what she felt she had to do for her agenda.
Whatever her agenda is.
Her agenda is to get Donald Trump clearly to pay attention in her direction so that she can have conversations with him about providing resources for urban cities like Chicago.
But is that the right way in order to do it? She was part of his diversity committee.
She chose her path.
She chose her path.
She will have to live with her name in the book.
All right. We're going to leave it at that. You're going to come back to the drive, right?
Always glad to be here, Roman. Hopefully I'll come back as a candidate.
Okay. We'll be back. Well, actually, that's going to do it for us on the Drive at 5. Thanks to Earl Winfrey, our executive producer. Wanda, who is behind the scenes. Real Ray, who is up next with Straight No Chasers. Next week, we'll have more on the Drive at 5. Have a good week, everyone.